we go. Recording. I'm not really good with these things, but I think I am recording now. Okay, let's just go through some basics for the course, and then I can let you go, all right? First of all, we are in LOS 1110, Voices of Others, Choices That Change Everything. I should tell you, this is a fairly new course. I have never taught it before. I am a fresh teacher to the course. Oh, we've got Mary. Mary's joining us. Very good. Hi, Mary. Welcome. Are you out there?
Yes. Hello.
Chris? Great. I'm so glad you showed up. We have Saida is with us, and so now we have you, and this makes it even more worth it. I'm going through the syllabus first, and then maybe a few pointers about some other things. I'm not going to keep you any later than I have to. This is only our first session. It's really just a get acquainted session. I'm glad to see you though, so welcome. I'm Professor Nicolosi. I'll be your teacher for the next 7 weeks. Okay, so I was just saying, this is a new course. I think it's run for a semester by the person who designed it. And then New England College asked me if I would take it this semester for you guys for 7 weeks. And I was happy to. I've been teaching in the humanities for, I don't know, I think this is my 39th year. I've got a PhD in philosophy, and I'm finishing a master's in psychology right now. So I kind of like both the sciences and the humanities. But when they asked me to teach it, I wasn't sure what to make of it, because it's, really looks really different than anything else I've ever taught. But as I've been going through the course, I'm starting to realize it's kind of an ethics course, sort of a rather nifty way of raising ethical questions. It's part of what the New England College program has under the LAS classes, the gen ed classes that are really specifically about the human condition. And this particular approach, we're looking at memorials and monuments, and we're listening to stories from the past that touch on the environment, on progress, on the impact of greed. So I think what we're really doing is we're going at it, we're going at the human condition from the point of view of what traditionally would have been called ethics. Anyways, let's get back to some basic information here. So the course will meet on Tuesdays from 7 to 8. As far as I'm concerned, if we finish what we need to do, we're out of there. Although I'm sure there are some occasions when we will go the full hour, okay? It's from January 11th, which would have been yesterday. So it's on a weekly basis. We'll finish on February 28th. So the first day of our week for the course is Monday, and the last day of our week for the course is Sunday by midnight. So I noticed in the syllabus, I have something I have to change about that, but we'll get there. If you need anything, I only have 5 of you. It's true, I'm teaching 5 courses a semester, so I've got a lot on my plate, but I only have 5 of you. So I'm thinking of you like a mother hen. You're all my little chickadees, and I'm taking you under my wing. If you need anything, email me. That's your first way to contact me. The email address is right there in the syllabus. Or in an emergency, text me. I put my phone number there too. So for example, an emergency would be you can't make the meeting, on a Tuesday night, and you just want me, you don't have to share your private life with me. You can just text me, I'm not going to be able to make it tonight, or whatever. Or another example of an emergency is you're working on an assignment, it's due in 2 hours, and you realize you really don't understand what this assignment was about to begin with. I'm cool. Send me a text, SOS, professor, can you give me some advice on this assignment? I'm not sure what to do. I have my phone on me all the time. Chances are I'm going to get right back to you. My promise is on any communication, I'll get back to you within 24 hours, but sometimes emergencies happen. So use my phone number to text me if you're in that situation. This is an online course, and I'm an adjunct teacher. I'm in Virginia. I think most of you guys are in Texas. So we can meet. We can have office time together, but we have to arrange it online, and I'm happy to do that with you, even if you just want to shoot the breeze. Okay, so what are we doing here? Our course description. I know it sounds, it's kind of boring to have to go through the syllabus or anything, but if you're an archer, you want to hit the bullseye on the target. So if you want to get a good grade in the course, it's a good idea to start just by understanding what the whole purpose of the course is, right? So that's why the course description is really important. So I'm going to read it, and I'm going to pause on certain places that I think you should kind of pay attention to, all right? So here goes. Working with varying genres of literature and storytelling. Right away, genres of literature and storytelling. This is what they call an interdisciplinary course, right? That's kind of nice because instead of doing one field, like just doing it from the point of view of psychology or just doing it from the point of view of history, this is interdisciplinary. It means we get different ways of looking at some of these questions we're going to be asking. So I like that right off the top. I love interdisciplinary thinking. By the way, if you ever have any questions, just stop me. I tend to move like a guided missile. So, you know, just raise a hand, put up a flag, and I'll stop. Okay, so it's interdisciplinary. This course will explore the human condition and the effects of our choices on the natural environment and the lives of others. I've already gone ahead into week 2. I was watching the video about the Panama Canal, and I understand now why this says this. The effects of our choices on the natural environment and the lives of others. They cut a frickin' 50-mile swathe right through the isthmus in Panama. I mean, if that doesn't have an impact on nature, right? And many, many people died in the building of the Panama Canal. So this is the kinds of things we're going to look at. What cost progress? Going on, listening to the voices found in the stories we tell, students will analyze the ethical, human, and environmental challenges of sustainability, greed, development, and progress. In so doing, we will consider the perspective of others in order to better understand our shared obligation and responsibilities to one another in the planet. I think it's interesting that you've got the little quotation marks around others. You know, maybe you're one of the others. Maybe some of the stuff we're going to look at is the story of your own people, your family. Maybe you've never been one of the others. Maybe your family has never been one of the others. Either way, you know, we're going to be listening to maybe those voices that aren't or haven't been most often heard. Okay. Themes of colonialism, conflict, cross-cultural communication, discrimination, human environment interaction, identity, labor, migration, and sacrifice will be investigated. Okay, and then they go on the italics there just to remind you that this is one of the LAS courses. So that means we're really focused on what does it mean to be human, the human condition. I want to point out, now I'm going to teach you something right from that little passage there. They say that education is rooted in the liberal arts. There's a little line there. And I always pause with students to look at that because we tend to be not very good with our vocabulary these days. We think when we read liberal arts, we mean that's like opposed to Republican arts or conservative arts. You know, the word liberal for us is a highly charged political word. So we see the expression liberal arts and immediately we think, well, this must be, you know, Democrats, progressives, liberals, that's what it means. It doesn't mean that at all. This is not a political word. All right, so I'm going to tell you what it does mean. So if you ever have to justify taking liberal arts courses, you can explain to people what that means to be in a liberal arts course or to get a liberal arts degree. The word liberal in English comes from a Latin word that means free as opposed to enslaved. So when you're taking a liberal arts program or you're taking a course in liberal arts, basically what you're doing is freeing your mind from enslavement. That's what it means to be a liberal arts student. It's not you need to get a couple of gen eds to finish your degree. It's not, oh yes, we need this to make us well-rounded human beings. It's not a political term. It's literally any kind of liberal arts course, even the one we're doing, its aim is to free your mind. You ever see The Matrix? Free your mind. That's what liberal arts are supposed to do. And it comes from, liberal comes from a Latin word that means free. So what does that mean to free your mind from enslavement? You have to go all the way back in the Western tradition to the father of Western philosophy. His name was Socrates. And Socrates had this brilliant analogy for us. Actually, it's called an allegory about how we grow up in a culture and how we get woke, how we get free. Socrates said, imagine you got all these people in a cave and these poor people are all chained up and they can't move their heads. And the only thing they can see is the wall in front of them. That's all they can see. They can't move. They're tied up in this cave, and all they can look at is the wall. And behind them, there's a big bonfire, and there's people carrying things in front of the fire. So if you're a clever person, you're getting this picture here, okay? You got a big light coming from the fire, and the light is being blocked by these images that are being carried in front of the fire. So what is that going to cast on the wall? Shadows. Shadows. And to make it even more difficult for the people who can only look at the wall, the people carrying the images in front of the fire, creating the shadows, they're making noises too. So the people looking at the wall see shadows and they hear sounds, and they've never had a chance to look anywhere else except at the wall. So what do they think reality is? They think reality is the shadows on the wall. And Socrates says, one day, these people are lucky enough, or at least one of them is lucky enough, somebody comes down into the cave and actually releases one of the prisoners. And the prisoner can stand up and look around and suddenly understands that everything he or she thought was real on the wall, it was just shadows and noises. It was all an illusion. Now, Socrates says that this experience is not easy, and that this person, he's really going to have a tough time at first. He's going to keep looking at the wall, then the fire, then the wall, then the fire. He's going to be very confusing for a while. He's really lost the plot. He or she has lost the plot. Everything they thought they knew about their life has suddenly just gone up in smoke. And so it's a tough moment. But it gets even worse when the person who released them grabs them by the hand and drags them up out of the cave into the sunlight. Have you ever gone from a really dark space into the sunshine? You know how your eyes feel, and it takes a few minutes to adjust? So you've probably heard this, it's called the allegory of the cave, right? You probably have heard it before at some point in your education. But I always want to stop and point it out to my liberal arts students to remind us that we're not taking these courses just to get a Gen Ed credit. We're not taking these courses so we're well-rounded human beings. Ultimately, any liberal arts course you take is an opportunity. You can seize the opportunity or not, right? But it's an opportunity to identify the illusions, the shadows that have been created, the smoke and mirrors that have been created by the culture we find ourselves in, and transcend that culture to begin to look at things in the light. We used to be able to use the word truth in education. We don't do it anymore. Truth is considered an entirely relative concept. But let's just say that it's starting to look at things not only from the point of view that we've always had. Maybe we could put it that way. Okay. All right. So with that said, this course is going to be definitely a course that takes us away from the wall. I always think that Socrates was somewhat prophetic. I have to share this with you. If you think about going to a movie theater, you know, we love movies, right? So we go to a movie theater. What do? We walk down into a dark place, like a cave, and we stare at a wall. And nowadays, of course, it's all digitalized, but originally there was the projection camera was behind us, and there was a light bulb, like a fire, and the light from the light bulb went through the film, and it created the images on the wall. I mean, this is Socrates' allegory of the cave all over the place, right? It's kind of striking. Okay, so what are we going to get out of this course then? What does New England College tell us you're going to get out of this? You are invited to recognize the effects of progress on the natural environment and the lives of others in order to articulate a foundation for exploring our shared humanity from multiple perspectives. You will learn to analyze the ethical, human, and environmental challenges of greed, development, and progress in order to discuss our interdependence with other humans. You will consider the perspective of others and shared responsibility to one another to help formulate questions that lead to discovery. I like that third one there because it touches on something which in philosophy is very important, a notion of wonder. Without wonder, life is pretty flat and dull, and the way we live should do this. It should, sort of encourage these questions in us that lead to discovery. And then finally, you will critically identify and test assumptions in order to interpret, reflect, and articulate a personal vision. That goes back to that liberal arts notion again. It's not to articulate the vision of New England College or my vision, or even the vision of the woman who designed this course. The ultimate goal here is for you to get out of the cave, for you to find, I guess, what Oprah Winfrey would call your truth, right? And what your personal vision is going to be, your personal values and your personal convictions, and then how you're going to live them. Education comes from two Latin words, ex ducere. Ex is a preposition that means, or a prefix that means from, and ducere means to lead. So when you get educated, you're being led from. Traditionally, we would say you're being led from ignorance towards the light. Again, we go back to Socrates' allegory of the cave. I want to give you two other thoughts there about education, which have been very meaningful to me in my career, and I think they're really, really important today. The great medieval thinker, Thomas Aquinas, he used to say that, you can have a debate with someone, that's fine, but you really don't have any right to participate in that debate until you can argue your opponent's position better than they can. It sounds very simple. I'm saying it very calmly, but I mean, think about it. You disagree with somebody about a point, right? You feel really passionate about it and you really disagree. But Thomas would say to you, you can't really argue with that person unless you have taken the time to listen to their position so well, to study their position so well, that you could actually argue their case better than they can. And then you have the right to enter that debate. My friends, we live in a time of such terrible political, it's not even discourse anymore. There's no public discourse anymore. And the reason there's no public discourse is because people don't know the meaning of discourse within themselves. If your mind is only a monologue, if all you can hear is one voice, then that's all you've got. So when you're in front of somebody who disagrees with you, and let's say that they are similarly stuck, all they have is a monologue in their heads, the end is just a screaming match. There's no room for compromise. There's no room for, for cooperation. It's really just a screaming match. And if you look at some of your political, situations right now, we use the word bipartisan so much in our culture today. This bipartisan thing that people we want to, do bipartisan work together. It doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen because we've got two people with an inner monologue on both sides of the line just screaming at each other. Give me an ethical problem and I'll show you how it happens. It could be anything from abortion to assisted suicide to gun control to even coming up with relief checks for COVID. You have people on both sides of the line and they basically just scream at each other. Education, and I really love this quote. This is a very, very old thought, but I'm going to pass it on to you. It's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain two opposing ideas at the same time. I'll say that again real slowly for you. It's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain two opposing ideas at the same time. This goes back to Thomas Aquinas' idea that you should be able to argue your opponent's position better than they can before you engage in a debate. In other words, we don't want to be people with just a monologue in our heads, just one voice, one, like a broken record that repeats and repeats over again. We want to be people that have an inner dialogue. We can actually hear different ideas and different voices, and we can do so without losing our cool. There's a word I like, dispassionately. It's an old word, you hardly ever hear it anymore, but dispassionately means that you're able to disengage your feelings from your thoughts. You're able to entertain ideas objectively without getting mad or angry. And there's another thing that's very much lacking in our culture today. People don't know how to separate their emotions from their thinking. And oftentimes they let their emotions do their thinking, which is a problem in itself. Okay. So that kind of generally sets a good background for you. I mean, this course is going to challenge us on a lot of levels, and that gives you some context for understanding what it is we're trying to do. let's talk about a few more practical things, and then I'll open up to questions, anything that you want to ask or contribute. I want to call your attention to the attendance policy, okay? You two obviously have no problem because you're off to a good start. We have 3 other people that are not so fortunate. But the attendance policy, it's pretty stiff in this course. I was surprised myself. Just 2 absences, you get 2 freebies, and any more than 2, and the course has been failed. That's pretty stiff. So we only have 7 weeks. It makes sense, 7 weeks, 7 sessions. If you miss 2, that's a lot. So do not miss class. Come to class. However, that said, you'll also find in the syllabus a little part in italics there about our present situation with COVID, with the pandemic. Last semester, it was really an experience teaching. First of all, a lot of classes ended up online, but also even in the classroom, I lost 1 student, couldn't come for the semester because very symptomatic of COVID. I had 2 others that had to quarantine themselves for 2 weeks before they could come back to class. We're living in extraordinary times. Education is being challenged. We are being challenged as people educating and being educated. So what I'm trying to tell you is there is a certain degree of flexibility here. Your syllabus says that if you provide documentation for an absence, okay, then we're good. 2 absences, we don't want to go more than that. But if a serious situation comes up, this is being recorded. Hopefully this will be posted. I'm going to record all these sessions, so you should be able to watch the recording. I always tell my students, communicate with me. Let me know what's happening. Let me know how I can help you. I probably understand you better than most of your professors. When I was 50, I went back to school to get another bachelor's degree, 50, right? I got a bachelor's degree in biology with a psych minor. I fell in love with psychology. So I went right from that degree into a graduate program in forensic psychology. Sorry, my cat is getting involved. Come on, buddy. I'm trying to teach now. You can't, oh, he's beautiful, but he's not welcome at the moment. I'm presently finishing, I have 1 more course to take for my master's in forensic psychology. I know exactly what you're living because I'm living it. I have family. I have like 5 jobs teaching to pay for my education habit. I spent all day today working on a paper for forensic psychology. So what I'm trying to tell you is, of all your professors, I probably understand you the best, and I want to help you. If you let me help you, communicate with me, we can always find a way forward. Your syllabus asks you to come to class online, 15 minutes. If you're 15 minutes late, that's considered an absence, right? If you leave 15 minutes early, that's considered an absence. And if you're late 3 times, that's an absence. But again, communication. If you know you're going to be late, send me a text. I'm going to be late, car broke down, whatever. If you know you have to leave early, just let me know ahead of time. Things happen. All right, so communicate with me. As far as late work policy goes, I'm pretty flexible. We have our due dates and they serve us well. We only have 7 weeks, so you really don't want to, miss an assignment and it turns into a big catastrophe with a short amount of time. But if you need an extra day or 2, just let me know. All right, I'm here to serve you. I am not here to lord it over you. I'm here to serve you, and I want to help you any way I can. I want to point out to you for passing in assignments, no Google format, no Google Docs. I can't open Google Docs. It's generally the policy here that every written assignment has to be submitted on Blackboard. You can't email me any assignments. They have to be submitted on Blackboard, and they should be in a Word program so that I can open them up, okay? All right. I want to warn you about the syllabus too, and about the course. Like I said, I inherited this. I keep finding all kinds of little things that aren't right. So I'm sort of tweaking it as I go along. If you see anything in the syllabus or anything like on the different weeks, I'm trying to clean up each week's content. I think I'm up to week 3. The course was originally live. It was in a classroom. So the content for each week is designed for living, breathing human beings in a room full of people. So I've had to like really clean it up and make it work for us online. So if you see anything weird, don't panic. It's probably not you, it's us. Just let me know and I'll work it out. Okay, we'll figure out what's going on. I do want to make a correction in your syllabus. It says that your first posting for your discussions is on Friday and the second one's on Tuesday. That's a carryover from the course, the live course. our week goes from Monday to Sunday night. So your first post, your initial post is due on Thursday by midnight, and then your replies to 2 classmates are due by Sunday midnight. I will make that change. I will put an announcement out to that effect. So Thursday night discussion board first post is due. Sunday night, your 2 responses to classmates. I also want to encourage you too. A lot of people, when they reply to classmates, they think, oh, it's just, it's like texting. It's like, just a social activity. I thought that was a great idea. No, it's not. This is school. So when you reply to a classmate, it's still academic work. What you want to do, a good policy, one of 3 things, all right? Make a good argument, cite facts that you can back up with a website, and any other credible source. Like you might find a peer-reviewed journal article, or you could also throw something in from TED Talks. I love TED Talks. YouTube. You don't just want to say, oh, that was such a lovely point. I totally agree. And my father used to say that. And so we're on the same page. That does not constitute a reply. This is school. Your reply has to be substantial. Always start by acknowledging what the other person has said, kind of repeat it in your own words so you show that you are picking up on a particular idea of theirs. You could agree, you could disagree, but you have to add something more, go further with that line of thinking. Okay, I'll be reminding you of this as we go forward too. Let me just make a check here if there's anything else that I should tell you about the syllabus. That looks good. Do you have any questions about the course, the procedure, me, how we're going to do things? Any questions at all?
I have one.
Go ahead, Mary.
A lot of times, because I've been doing the online course for, I guess, since COVID happened, I know that you all are in a different time zone.
Yes.
And I know that also the, like, I guess the time, like when we turn our papers in, it's in your time zone instead of our time zone.
Yes, generally it is.
So that just means, okay, so you say, for instance, I turn a paper at 11:59, it'll be considered late because it'll be 12:59 your time.
Except that it's me. I think okay. most professors are really sticklers for that. Here's another reason why I don't operate that way. I studied in Europe for 9 years, and the European model is not like the American model at all. They don't follow you around with a stick. They don't threaten you with losing points. They just say, hey, it's due Monday. So I'm a little bit more liberal, I'll use my word liberal, in my policies. I'm not going to care if you are an hour or 2 late. I'm not going to care, okay? And if you have any doubts, you just send me a little note. You can even send me a text or an email. Dr. Nicolosi, I needed an extra couple of hours. it's coming, it's there, I hope it's going to be okay. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
And to remind you again, I only have 5 of you. So I can extend you courtesies and leniency that I wouldn't normally be able to. You got a classroom of 30 people. You do tend to need to hold to the boundaries a little more firmly because you have to take care of 30 people. I only have 5 of you, and I want to give each one of you the maximum. Does that make sense, Mary?
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, yes, not to worry. Not in this particular class. You don't have to worry about it too much. Any other questioners? Saida, how are you doing? Are you with us? You following? Everything okay?
Yes, I do have a question as well. You mentioned about assignments being in Word format, but I've noticed we only have like 1 assignment and the rest are discussion boards, right?
Yeah, yes.
So the discussion boards are supposed to be in Word, or are they like the Blackboard format like we usually do for other classes?
That's a great question. The discussion posts are pretty hefty. Some of them you have to actually do research. You're going to have to use a documentation style. I allow my students to use APA, MLA, or Turabian, whichever one you're familiar with, but any kind of academic writing has to be written in an academic way, including a documentation style, whatever your discipline is. People in the sciences, social sciences, law enforcement, they use APA, American Psychological Association. Other people are in the humanities, they'll use usually MLA or Turabian. Because this is the case, Saida, you're probably going to craft your post not online. because you got to work at these. So you probably don't want to open up a post and just start typing and researching. And it'd be a lot of work to have, while your post is open. You're probably going to do it in a Word document and work on it. And then when you're happy with it, probably then you're going to cut and paste it into the Blackboard discussion board. So, and that's where Word probably would come in for you. I know when you paste something into Blackboard, it always asks you, keep the formatting or not keep the formatting, so you have to make that decision when you paste it in. I guess ultimately, because we have only the one assignment that you have to, it's really not as big a concern as the syllabus is making it out to be. It has been a concern for some of my other classes where there are many written assignments. I always, if I have a class of 30 students, I'll always have 2 or 3 who submit a Google document. And no matter how much I've said at the beginning, no Google Docs, no Google Docs. And then I get Google documents. Now I'm a nice person, so I just kind of type them an email and say, if I don't get your paper within 24 hours, then I'm going to give you a 0. But I mean, you're within your rights as a teacher to give 0 if the assignment is not in the right format. I'm not answering your question. I'm just rambling. Are you okay?
No. You're actually answering my question, because my second question was about the formatting of the paper. I was about to ask that. So yeah, I'm glad you're comfortable with any format, because I'm only familiar with one.
Which one?
MLA.
MLA. Great. All right. What I will do to help you all, I have 3 paradigm papers for each of the possible 3 documentation styles. I'll post those for the class. So the reason why this is helpful is nobody has time to read all the rules. But if you have an example paper of a perfect MLA paper or a perfect APA paper, you print it out, you keep it next to you, and then you just imitate what you see. Whether it's a footnote, like in Turabian, use footnotes. In MLA and APA, use in-text citations, of course. And then you have your reference page. You have to see how to do the full references. I will post those 3 example papers. One of them is an MLA paper. Download it, and use it as your paradigm, as your example, unless you're really good at it already, which you sound very smart, so you're probably really good at MLA already. After teaching for 39 years.
Not too good.
I've seen
No,
them
but
all.
I will try my best. Thank you for the sample papers. It'll help a lot, honestly.
Yes, and not just for this class. If you download to your computer, keep it on your computer, and then also print one out, every single class you have to do a paper for, you have an example, you know how it's supposed to look. It's kind of a mystery to me with students, but I always tell them, this is a visual thing. This is not a brain thing. You don't have to be smart to do this. Just, what does the title page of an APA paper look like? Make your title page look the same way. And no matter how many times I say that, students don't believe me that it's that simple. But it is. There's a visual formatting for all academic work according to the discipline that you're in. We don't have time to get into tonight, but every discipline has a history, a language, a method. And if you're going to be an expert in your discipline, then part of the language of your discipline is learning how to write in that discipline. One of those 3, MLA, APA, or Turabian. So I won't spend any more time with that, but I will post those papers for you so you have something to look at. Okay, any other questions there before I move on? Okay, did you both have a chance today to look at the material for week 1, to watch any of the videos or look at the Holocaust gallery? Did either of you have a chance to do that?
No, I did not go through the videos.
Okay, Mary, did you have a chance?
Not yet. I was going to do that tonight.
Okay, that's fine. Then I'm not going to belabor the point on them. Then I just want to point out a couple of things to you. Don't miss this opportunity. I got assigned this course and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to be one of these loosey-goosey courses, gen eds, you never know what you're going to get. But then today, I really seriously sat down with that week 1 material. I watched every single, thing I had to watch. I looked at the galleries. And then I was so intrigued by what I saw, I did a little research too on the background of some of these things. My friends, it breaks your heart. When you look at the Holocaust memorials, the examples in the gallery, they have these pictures of all these memorials. I don't know, I've never really been the kind of person who paid attention to monuments and memorials, even though I traveled all around Europe. I don't know, I just never looked at them. But I'm going to look now, I can tell you. I am going to be looking now. One of them, for example, the very first one in the Holocaust Gallery is from the Warsaw Ghetto. It's a memorial of the Warsaw Ghetto. What a story. I couldn't believe it. Why don't we tell these stories? Why don't we have history in our lives, you know? Because there's a lot to learn. You had the Nazis just carting the Jews to the concentration camps, you know, Poland, so many Poles, Polish people were killed. And in this particular place in Warsaw, they knew that the next cartload of people out was going to die. And they decided they would rather choose, this is what they said later, they would rather choose how they died than have the Nazis take them and kill them any which way. So they made a stand in the Warsaw Ghetto. They resisted the Nazis, and they gave the Nazis a run for the money. They knew they were going to lose. There was no way they could win. They knew it. But they created these bunkers, and they got some weapons, and they held them off as long as they could. And the Nazis couldn't break these people with guns. You know how they finally flushed them out? They literally burnt down every block of the area of the city where these people were in. They literally burnt down every block until they finally had them cornered. And many of the people died from the flames and the smoke inhalation before they finally were captured. The survivors were captured and, of course, carted off to the concentration camps. 13,000 Jewish Poles died in this uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto. So when you look at these pictures, this gallery of memorials, take a few minutes, do a Wikipedia search, go find a little bit of history, and then look at the picture again. Because what I have in front of me, if you had been prepared tonight, we would have actually gone through each one together. I have little history notes all around each of the memorials. Blew my mind, just blew my mind. This is really an important issue for us right now in the United States. Since the death of George Floyd, in many of our major cities, statues that have been there for a couple centuries, a century, famous Americans like Abraham Lincoln, people like Christopher Columbus, who's called the discoverer of America. These statues have been pulled down, they've been effaced. Columbus in Boston had his head taken off. I think it's really amazing that the woman who designed this course had the prescience to realize that we need to talk about this. Because if we're going to tear down monuments and memorials, do we leave the place blank? Or do we put something else up instead? If we're going to start putting up different memorials and monuments, what are they going to mean? Who are they going to be of? And how are they going to be made? For example, one of these you'll see in the Gallery of Holocaust Memorials, there's a memorial on the Danube River. All it is 60 pairs of shoes along the bank of the river. You know why? Because for 2 years, the Nazis took those people in that city, shot them, and threw their bodies into the Danube River. So the memorial is just 60 pairs of shoes lined up. There's another one in Hungary, which you'll see. It doesn't look like anything at first. It looks like this it's a city square, and it looks like a big, I don't know, star on the ground. And this is what you find out. There had actually been in that square a beautiful fountain that had been paid for by some of the Jewish citizens of the town. And the Nazis, hating the Jews, destroyed the fountain. So after the war, and many of the local people were killed in concentration camps too. So after the war, they wanted a monument to remember the monument. Rather than rebuild a fountain, you know what the guy did? He was brilliant. He put the fountain upside down and sunk it into the ground. So you go to this place and you look down through this glass and you're looking like at the bottom of the fountain, and it goes in 12 feet into the ground. Right? This is amazing. And he rigged it too so that there's water. You actually can hear the water dripping in this fountain in the ground. And one of the reasons the artist said he did this was because the way he did it, carving into the ground like that was like a wound, like a scar in the ground. So I highly encourage you, do not miss this opportunity to look at these photos in the gallery and to read the accompanying articles. One of the articles makes the point that we use the words memorial and monument in a rather similar way. There's actually a difference between the two words. I don't think in our course we're going to, really try to be too careful about using them the right way. But just to be aware, we usually use the word memorial for some kind of death commemoration or some kind of sorrowful thing that we want to commemorate. We usually use the word monument for something celebratory. So you kind of have a dark and a light there, or a negative and a positive. The words tend to mean these different things, although we'll use them at the same time. All right, well, you know what? I think that, don't miss this video of Ben Ferencz. It's short, it's only like 9 minutes, okay? I knew about this guy already because when I teach ethics, I have to teach about the Nuremberg trials that happened after Nazi Germany. It's incredible. All these evils perpetrated by the Nazis, we only put 22 guys in the courtroom out of thousands of people who perpetrated these crimes, okay? And you know what Ben Ferencz says? The reason why we only tried 22 was there were literally only 22 seats to sit them in. That's why it was 22. At that time, no one knew anything about what we take for granted now as crimes against humanity. That phrase hadn't even been invented. They knew that these Nazis had done terrible things, but they didn't have anything in the legal world to deal with what these guys had done, and women too. There was no established precedent in law for how to deal with them. So Ben Ferencz, he was this young American. This was the first law case he was ever involved in his life. And you'll see a clip of him speaking at the trial. Absolutely brilliant man who understood the gravity of those Nuremberg trials. And it was because of those trials that we began to build legal precedents for making people accountable for certain kinds of crimes, what came to be defined as crimes against humanity. Don't miss this video, 9 minutes. It'll blow your mind. I think he might have passed just recently. I have to look this up, but his entire life after that, he devoted to, I guess we would say, social justice today, to fighting totalitarianism and tyranny and crimes against humanity. Don't miss it. He's a beautiful man. Let's see if there's anything else here. Oh, there's a wonderful interview with Oprah Winfrey and a man named Elie Wiesel. He wrote a very famous book called Night about his experiences as a concentration camp prisoner, and he lost his whole family in one day. They arrested them, the whole family. They dropped them off at Auschwitz, and he and his father were sent to the labor camp, and his mother, his sister, everybody else, they just sent immediately to the gas chamber. He didn't know. He didn't know that they died like within that hour. He found out later. The thing that impressed me the most about what he told Oprah was that, and they're right in Auschwitz. In the video, you're going to see them standing in Auschwitz. He's going to point out where these things happen. He said, we had no idea. He says it several times. We had no idea. Neither did the world. How did this go on for so long? No one could have conceived of an evil this big. No one had any idea. And as it began to trickle out, as the news began to trickle out, nobody could believe it. The late John Paul II, Pope John Paul II, he called the 20th century the century of death, a culture of death. Because the world had always had evils. You'd always have, armies going into a place and killing everybody, men, women, children, and animals. I mean, you always had terrible things. But not like this. In the 20th century, the killing of human beings has been done scientifically, systematically. And here's the worst one. Because of propaganda, these murders are actually seen as goods by the people who perpetrate them. It's not like you're killing somebody you know it's wrong. People like Joseph Goebbels, who ran the propaganda in Nazi Germany, they were so effective in their propaganda that they believed what they were doing was right. That's different. That's different. So we're back at Socrates again. You know, do we have minds that are enslaved to the messages of our culture? Or are we liberally educated and we're able to tell the difference between a spin and a story? We're able to tell what's a shadow on a wall from what's a reality. I think that's really what we're about. Do you have any questions or comments? Mary, Saida, how are you doing?
Well, here in Dallas, we have this wonderful Holocaust museum.
Ah,
Well, COVID-19, I don't know if they're still doing it, but I've been several times to hear some of the survivors
wow.
from Holocaust, and it's just really engaging when they're talking. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Um, and like my daughter, she did a story over it, and of course I was like, I'm going to the museum with you. It's simply amazing. So I'm really excited that we're talking about the Holocaust.
Mary, you look a little older. That's a good thing. Like I told you, I went back to school when I was 50 to get another degree, right?
Yeah.
But I think for you and me, we still come from a generation that cared about these things.
Yes.
My young students, my typical undergraduate age students, they don't know
Mhm.
anything. And not only do they not know anything about these historical events, they don't care. I could fill up
Right.
the whole whiteboard in my classroom. If I asked my students to tell me everything they know about Batman, I could fill up the whole whiteboard. All the movies, all the actors, all the directors, even who they were married to and what cars they drive, how it connects to other superheroes. I mean, I could literally fill up the whole whiteboard with what my students know about Batman. But if I ask them even the most basic questions about the Holocaust, about the killing fields of Cambodia, about the genocide in Rwanda, or even something like, usually I'll ask my students, how many nuclear detonations have taken place since 1945? First of all, they won't even know why 1945 is significant, that was the year we had the first atomic bombs and that 2 of them were dropped on civilian populations. So they'll say, well, Professor, I don't know, 30, maybe the more liberal ones will say 100. And then I'll say to them, almost 3,000 nuclear detonations have taken place in the sky, in space, under the ocean, on the ground, and under the ground. Almost 3,000 since 1945. And they're shocked. You know, and I'll say to them, why do you care more about things that have nothing to do with your survival, have nothing to do with your family's survival? Why do you care more about Batman than the possibility of total nuclear annihilation? Because the last bomb that the Soviets detonated, it was called the Tsar Bomba. It was so powerful, it dwarfed what we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It dwarfed it. And it was so powerful, the Russians themselves were terrified and they didn't try again. But they currently have plans for a bomb 10 times more powerful than that one. You know, these are the things that we should be caring about. And yet I have a younger generation in my classroom. It means nothing to them. I don't mean to sound negative. I hope you don't take this as sounding negative. It's just that you and I think we represent a time when people maybe still realize what were the important issues, you know?
I really want to add to that, Professor, because I completely relate with what you said about the younger generation not knowing about it. This is the first time I've even heard of the Holocaust. Okay, I have no idea. Much of it is because my whole education was in a completely different country, and our whole history was, I mean, 90% of our history was focused on just the independence from British,
Yes.
and they didn't bother to teach more elaborately about even the World War.
Yeah.
So when anyone mentions the terms like, the Germans did this, or the Jews went through that, or the Soviet, or this and that, it I don't really get it because I have never had the chance of dwelling that deep into history, world history, importantly.
Hmm.
So I mean, really don't mind learning about it. For me, any it's like a story. I
It
would
is, yeah.
really love to know about what happened. Yes. It is just as much as maybe Batman. I
Hmm.
will take similar interest in it. I will watch documentaries about it. I would love to know more about it. So I'm really looking forward to this class and everything that you're going to talk about because it is already interesting me a lot.
Here's something for you to think about, Saida. Adolf Hitler, you know who he got his ideas from about it's horrible, to take over Europe and to dominate peoples that he considered subhumans, inferior humans. You know where he got his ideas from for that? You'll appreciate this. From the British. And
No.
you know where he looked? To
Oh,
India. Because he thought, this is Hitler, right? He's an evil and mad person, but he thought that what the British did in India was brilliant to subjugate an inferior race. It was, he got his ideas from the British.
it was terrible, honestly, what the British did to Indians and the whole country. I mean, we did take a lot from them as a whole. We have learned a whole new language and many things that we have learned from them. But it has left a scar so bad on the country that the country's progress has slowed down so much.
Hmm. Yes,
It's just terrible.
yes.
The minorities over there are just still trying and struggling every day, and we just can't reach that level even in the next uh, century, I guess.
Unfortunately, colonialism, it really depends on who's writing the history, because for a long time, colonialism was praised so highly. But we're telling a different story now. Colonialism, not just that of the British. If you think of what Belgium did under King Leopold II, we're going to talk about this in the course. The Congo, I think they say it's like 10 million Congolese died because of the interest of Belgium in their mineral resources, and horrible. Colonialism left scars all over the globe. The colonialism of Britain was the largest, but obviously you had Spain, you have France, you have the other countries of Europe. Um, the Europeans really believed that they were a superior race and that these peoples they were conquering were inferior races. And so we today are dealing with the results of that terrible, terrible era, you know. But we'll talk about that more in the course. We are going to learn a lot of history. If you're interested in learning history, this course is for you. But you're going to have to do something a little above and beyond because, like today, I had to do the research for the history of these monuments I was looking at. It's not just simply given to you. If you want to know more, you have to go a little further yourself. Anything else, my friends? We've been at it for almost an hour. I'm proud of you. Anything else you want to say before we go? All right. Okay. We'll end it there.
Just a little
Yes.
question from,
Yes.
is there a word limit on the discussion boards? I mean, I will try to make it as elaborate as possible to prove my point, but is there a limit?
No. I look for thoroughness. And after the first week, you'll get my feedback too on discussions. Well, this week you don't have really anything hard to do. It's just an introduction discussion board, who we are, why we're here, why are we doing this. Next week, you'll get my feedback and that will help you write even better discussion posts. I like to see substantiated thinking. I like to see thorough explanations, and I like to see good English grammar. If you need to work with a writing tutor, then make time to be able to do that as well. Uh-oh, here comes somebody who's not on Eastern Standard Time. Okay, ladies, we're done. Seda and Mary, you can go because we finished our session. I'll talk to Anthony for a minute here since he's showing up now, okay? So see you next week.
Thank
Take care, all right? Bye-bye.
Good evening.
Hello, Anthony, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Or
You know-
can you hear me?
Yes, I can, but you know what? We just finished the session.
Oh, really? I thought was at 7 or
Yeah, where do you live?
in Texas, Garland.
Yeah, and New England College is in New England. I'm in Virginia. I'm on the East Coast. So if you looked at my last announcement, so I put it out one more time to indicate that 7 was Eastern Standard Time, because it's 8 o'clock here now.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's okay, Anthony. I'm fine. Do you have a few minutes? I can just kind of. Well, you know what? I've recorded the session that I had with the 2 students who showed up, so you can watch the recording. But if you have a few minutes, I'll stop that recording and just tell you a few things about the course. Is that okay? Do you have a few minutes?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. That's fine. I'm so sorry